Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm John Cartwright, and I'm joined with the stupendous Ash Paulson.
Stupendous? I don't think I've been described as stupendous in a good few months. I appreciate that.
Good few months? Is this a common phrase?
At least, if not more. It might have been years. Stupendous. That's high praise indeed, man.
It's needed because there's a stupendous character has just launched in Smash, being Min Min. We've had 5 days with her, and just initial thoughts, Ash. When you first got your hands on Min Min, did it click? Did you think this is a great character, or did you think, I don't know, I need some more time with her?
It's funny, because when I saw the presentation prior to her release, I was like, okay, this is a character who looks really interesting. Mechanically, she's going to be really cool, and I can't wait to see what some really good players do with her. But she doesn't seem like a character that I will be very good with. Sakurai described her as very like a ground-based fighter, not very good in the air necessarily. Better than Little Mac, but still very much a ground-based fighter. And for me, the characters I excel with typically have very good air games, high air mobility, high air speed, and Min Min is none of those things. So I figured, okay, this is a cool character, but probably not one I will excel with. But having since played her, I'm not going to say I excel with her, but I'm better with her and enjoy playing her more than I thought I would. She can do some really just interesting things that other characters cannot, and we've kind of been talking about it among the Game Explained crew, especially as you've done in some of your videos, John, and it's really interesting how she literally plays like an ARMS character in 2D, and Sakurai has done such a good job kind of transplanting her from the world of ARMS into the world of Smash.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, no other Smash character plays like this. And it's crazy how they've accommodated Min Min. They sort of accommodated her by changing the rules of Smash. So with most characters, A and B are completely separate moves, like B being specials, A being standard attacks. But with Min Min, as you say, they've taken the rules of ARMS and put them into Smash. So one of them controls the right arm, the other one controls the left arm. And in a sense, that goes completely against the rules of how you play Smash. But somehow they have incorporated it in a way that makes sense, and it somehow gels with every other character. But I think more than maybe any other character in the game, she completely changes how you approach a fight. Like when you're up against a Min Min player, you have to take range into account more than you would with Simon and Richter, because range is basically her entire deal.
Yeah.
I will say though, one thing I think Sakurai definitely downplayed was her up-close combat. Min Min's up smash in particular is deadly. I'm a Pichu main, and when I'm around 50%, 60%, that up smash is enough to KO me. It's insane how powerful that is.
Well, and it's a reflector too, just in case. Just in case, you can also use it as a reflector. And yeah, no, her jab combo comes out pretty quickly too. So I agree. I think her close-up game is better than Sakurai kind of intimated it would be in his presentation. She's definitely a range fighter, there's no doubt about that. But yeah, up close, it's not as though she can't do anything. But I have found that that her main weakness when I'm going up against her is kind of, as Sakurai said, it's a little easy to get in on her with characters that can get over her. And so, as you know, I'm a Mega Man main, and Mega Man's forward air is, at least when I'm playing against, people who've played her so far, I can get in on Min Min with his forward air pretty easily, because it comes out so fast, and Mega Man has such a high air mobility that, he can get way over her range of effect, because she can't angle her arms that high vertically, right? So it is pretty easy to get over her, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't have things that she can use to keep you out after that. She just has to maintain distance. So she's a really interesting character both to play as and go up against. One thing I find myself getting caught by over and over again are her dragon arms with the lasers. The range that she gets off those lasers is insane. Like you think you're safe and you're not. Anytime you're playing against a Min Min range-wise, if you think you're safe, 99% of the time you're not. And those dragon lasers too, or the dragon arm lasers, they do good knockback. It's surprisingly easy to get KO'd by those things.
If you're a character like Marth, or Cloud, or Lil Mac, any character with sort of like a low-tier recovery, you're doomed if those dragon arms hit you off the edge. There's no coming back from that.
She is such a good edge guarder. It's crazy how good her offstage game is without her having to even go offstage. She can get offstage kills without having to put herself at much risk. And as you said, characters with poor recoveries, that's it. You're done. If she gets you with one of those lasers, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So it's really interesting. Although what's also interesting is if you get her off stage, she doesn't have a great recovery either. So there's not a whole lot she can do either if you get her off stage in the same situation. So it's really an interesting dynamic with her, isn't it?
It is. And one thing I found that not many players have really mastered yet is when to switch arms. Because all the time you have the Dragon Arm out, that's just one of your default arms, you can't change that. But then there's the Dragon Arm that you can have on your other arm, there's the Megawatt, and there's the Ram Ram.
Right.
And each of them has a very different possible outcome that you're using with them. And I've found that a lot of players tend to use the Megawatt a lot of the time. And I think what sort of balances Min Min is each arm has a very deliberate effect. But it's a two-step thing. So if you want to get the Ram Ram out, you first have to press down B and cycle to it, and then use it. And I find the Ram Ram is great at trying to get rid of aerial players. Because you were saying earlier, if you can get up close with Min Min, it's very easy just to completely bypass her range and just get some very quick attacks in her, like with Mega Man's forward air. But with the Ram Ram, that's very great at just disabling any aerial play, because that will just go into the air and immediately hit them. But yeah, getting that out, that's another step, and that's something I think a lot of players have to try and get their minds around. Because Min Min technically has 3 different movesets hidden in here with those arms.
Well, and the Ram Ram 2 has a higher vertical area of effect, so that kind of helps her catch characters who are trying to get in over her. Most of the Min Min players I have played, as you were saying, they don't use the Ram Ram very much, so I haven't had a lot of experience going up against that, because as you just said, a lot of them are either using the Megawatt or 2 Dragon Arms. So yeah, I think mastering the Ram Ram is key to mastering Min Min, because the Ram Ram is the one arm that doesn't seem to have a lot of utility right out of the gate, right? It's not as obvious as what the Megawatt does and what the Dragon Arm does. With the Dragon Arm, you've got that crazy range with the laser. With the Megawatt, you've got this ridiculously strong attack that does 36% fully charged if it hits, and can kill incredibly early, terrifyingly early. And I've used the Megawatt to trap people on ledges who think they're safe. It's really funny to see people who think they're safe hanging on a ledge and then just pop out a Megawatt fully charged, or not even fully charged, and just angle it down slightly, and it will KO them every single time. And it's nope, you're not as safe as you think you are. But the same thing though goes when I play Min Min. I don't use the Ram Ram as much because I haven't really gotten good at using it. So I think the Ram Ram is kind of the key here that is kind of missing for a lot of players so far. That said, sure. I'm not a Min Min main. I probably won't ever be. But I do really enjoy playing her, and I'm trying to stay mindful of the fact that when I do play as her, I have to experiment with the Ram Ram more, because I just haven't done that yet as much.
What's interesting with Min Min is when my approach to Smash's DLC characters is I try and get them into Elite Smash, and once I've done that, I kind of see that as almost a completion of that part of the DLC. And with every other DLC character, it took hundreds upon hundreds of matches. I think with Hero, I had over 1,000 KOs online before he got into Elite Smash. With Min Min, 25 minutes. That's
really?
how long it took. 25 minutes.
That's surprising.
I don't know how, but yeah, I definitely didn't master her. But I think because you're so new, a lot of people didn't quite know how to counter her, and I just kind of used that to my advantage. But it was so quick to get her into Elite Smash, and she just felt powerful doing that. And I definitely didn't master the Ram Ram. A lot of my technique was literally just doing smashes the entire time. But with Min Min, when you're doing your standard A and B attacks, you can get the other arm out really quickly, which is one thing that smashers don't quite do so well. And that's one thing I wasn't doing, but now I've got more of a grasp on Min Min. I found that just sort of doing those jabs, one after the other, and sort of just playing the field. You can jab right and jab left immediately, and basically cover the entire stage. And that for 3 or 4 player battles really has a great upper hand for Min Min compared to other players. This character has a ton of depth, more than I think many characters in this game have.
Yeah, I've seen that dirty trick be pulled a few times, where even on 1v1 battles, the Min Min player will seem like they whiffed by shooting out one of their arms away from the opponent. And then the opponent naturally forgets, oh wait, no, she can smash twice in a row. So then they'll just throw it out toward the opponent and catch them completely off guard. And it's a nasty trick, but that's one of those weird things that only Min Min can do. And I agree. I think she has a lot of depth, more than it seems at first. And what's interesting is that if you're not really used to the weird things she can do, it at first feels like she doesn't have a lot of depth. Because I've kind of frozen up before playing Min Min, like thinking, okay, I'm going to play, and then I'm like, wait, I don't have my specials. But wait, I do have my specials, there's just not specials in Min Min's case. So there'll be times where I feel like I have less options than I actually do because my brain is so wired to the traditional Smash character setup of B being on specials and A being on standard attacks. So when you're in the heat of a match, if you're not used to Min Min, it can feel like you don't have access to specials, but you do. It's just a different, kind of special, even though it really isn't. It's a weird way to think about a Smash character.
This is a bad and probably not a great comparison, but I feel like Min Min, with most of her attacks just being flinging her arms, I somehow feel like she's a more diverse character than Sonic, who is primarily just about spinning. It's just like the homing attack, the spin dash, the other spin dash.
Sonic's moveset in Smash is so disappointing. It always has been to me.
But they've done so much more with a lesser capacity with Min Min.
Yeah, they really have. And, I mean, I'm glad that she at least has her down and up specials to kind of still make it feel like that Smash DNA is there. And I'm probably say that because in my discussion with Andre and with you actually, I called her down B being an arms change. I totally called that.
You did.
And so I'm still like loving that actually turned out to be that. But yeah, it even though, as you said, most of her attacks are just flinging her arms out in different directions with different arms equipped, that alone gives her so much depth, even though it doesn't always feel like it in the moment. Or at least to me, it doesn't always feel like it in the moment.
And we did a video comparing the range of all her moves, and it turns out that her standard jabs are actually very similar to Mega Man's standard A. So his pellets, they are very similar range to Min Min's.
Right.
But I believe Mega Man's actually fire a little bit faster. So technically, in terms of jabs, if you take into account the Dragon Arm and the laser, Min Min has a much broader range than Mega Man does. But the actual range of her standard attacks aren't that different.
Right. And I'm glad that Mega Man's come out faster, just because it feels like they should, given what his character is. That would be a huge problem if Min Min's came out at the same speed. But no, it really, she changes up the metagame a whole lot, and I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of where she settles. Not necessarily on the tier list, but just kind of where she settles in the metagame. You know, who she's good against, who she's not so good against, and what Min Min mains kind of come up with to cover her weaknesses against characters that can get around a lot of the stuff she can do. I mean, again, I think that a huge part of her game is, as we said before, learning to master the Ram and bring it out in situations that require it. Because that's the one out of the gate that seems to have the least utility when you're just getting used to her. But I think that's going to end up having the most to do with covering her weaknesses. And then the other thing is just getting really good at edge guarding, and that's something that Min Min does so well in a way that no other character does, because, you know, as I was saying before, she can guard off stage without having to put herself at risk, and that is so key for her. And she can just completely gimp characters who don't have good recoveries. So I think those two elements for a game, at least to me, who again is not a Min Min main, but those two elements to me seem to be the key to really getting good with her. And
we do go through this every single time when a DLC character comes out. Everyone's like, oh, they're overpowered. Like when Hero came out, everyone thought his spells were overpowered.
Oh, every time.
Like Terry with another special, that's overpowered. Or when he goes up, above 100% and has those other moves, that's overpowered. And I think it's just a learning curve. Once you understand how to deal with it, it's usually fine.
Exactly. I mean, even with Hero, you know, people were, as you're saying, people were screaming, OP, he's too strong. But then, you know, you have to take into account that his normals really lack range, and they come out pretty slowly. Like, his aerials are good if they hit, and his smashes are good if they hit, but they have so much startup, and their range isn't that great. So I think that kind of helps balance Hero out. And same thing with, you know, people weren't saying that about Banjo-Kazooie necessarily as a character overall, but there were people who are like, Wonder Wing is way too good. Well, yeah, but it takes forever to come out, and if you can get people, you know, the player into a pattern of knowing when they're going to use it, it's really easy to jump over, and then you can catch them out of it when they're coming out of it. So every DLC character, in my opinion, so far has had that kind of, that initial, oh man, this thing they can do is too good. But once you can get around it, and once there's been a little time to get used to it, they're not nearly as OP or even OP at all the way they initially seem to be. Actually, ironically, I still think Joker is the strongest DLC character in terms of...
Sure.
Yeah, like I still think that if there's any DLC character who maybe is a little too good, it's still Joker, and really just because of Arsene and how long he still stays out. And I know he was nerfed, I think 2 patches ago, or maybe 1 patch ago, slightly. The Arsene's time and how quickly the meter fills and drops was nerfed a bit, but to me, still seems like Joker is still maybe the one who's just a little bit too good.
While we're on the topic of other DLC fighters, before we get on to the rest of this pack, I want to get your impression of where Min Min lies. And this is tricky, because we look at Joker, we look at Terry, we look at Banjo, we look at Hero. Those are like these very popular characters, and while ARMS sold well, it sold very well, and Min Min's a very popular character in that game, I don't think she's quite the same legacy. I love Min Min. I don't think that... I wouldn't put her like in the same league as Hero and Banjo, though. But with that sort of almost disregarded, where do you think her... In terms of her moveset, where do you think she rests in the lineup of DLC?
That's hard, because she exists in kind of this weird middle zone, where, as you said, she has something of a legacy, especially, relative to Nintendo itself. But ARMS isn't that old a game. It hasn't, it didn't come out that long ago. That's a really hard one. Yeah, I mean, I think Min Min is probably the character who probably has the least, other than Byleth, of course, probably has the least appeal right out of the gate for a lot of folks, only because, again, ARMS sold well, but it didn't light the world on fire. And she's not necessarily flashy. She doesn't have a lot of really, to the general observer who's not necessarily an ARMS or Nintendo fan, all you're going to see is this, weird-looking character who has springy arms and can do weird-looking long-range attacks, right? There's not anything that sets her apart, like, the legacy of, say, Banjo-Kazooie or Hero, who has his command spells, and Joker, who has Arsene. And so, yeah, she rests in some kind of weird middle ground. So I guess I would say that in terms of just appeal right out of the gate, she's probably in front of Byleth, but behind everybody else. Maybe in front of Terry. Maybe in front of Terry, because Terry, to the general observer, just looks like another Ryu or Ken, especially Ken. Without knowing his legacy and what his moves are and where they come from. So I guess maybe she rests somewhere around Terry and comes up ahead of Byleth, but is probably behind everybody else, is kind of where I'd put her. But again, that's only, I guess I'm speaking from a general observer standpoint, and you asked me how I feel about it. I would put her behind Terry, but in front of Byleth. Yeah, I guess that's how I would feel.
It's kind of a testament to the rest of the DLC that this character that comes along and completely changes the rules of Smash. Like, she changes the control layout, she just changes how you play this character. And somehow that's not the most impactful of all the DLC. I think... I love Min Min, and I kind of agree with you, though. Like, I think that Joker and Hero and Banjo... Well, actually, to an extent, not Banjo. I think Banjo... I love that he's finally in Smash, but he didn't quite change the rules in the way the other characters did.
That's true, yeah. Although, I mean, although Banjo-Kazooie do have, they don't really change the rules, but Wonder Wing is its own weird thing, in the sense that it really does trump everything in the game that I can think of. I haven't studied the frame data or anything, but I don't think there's anything that has higher priority than Wonder Wing if the two clash, right?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's the highest priority.
So that kind of, in its own way, changes the rules of Smash in a bit, and maybe not in an outward way, like in the same way that Terry and Hero and and such do, but at the same time, it sure does when you're facing a Banjo-Kazooie, because when you're facing down a Banjo-Kazooie, that Wonder Wing can be whipped out at any time, and if you're high enough percentage, it's a free kill if they catch you off guard with it. So even though it does come out slowly and it's easy to catch Banjo-Kazooie out of it, it's a constant stressor when you're when you're facing one.
You're always on the defense.
Yeah, because you never know when they're going to pull that out, and it's a free kill if you're close enough to the edge of the stage and you're high enough percent. So that, in their own way, I think maybe Banjo-Kazooie don't get enough credit for how they kind of rewrite the rules of Smash in their own subtle way. I just don't think it's as flashy as some other characters. I mean, I would almost say that Byleth is probably the character that feels the most normal to me. I know that the main thing is that they have different weapons depending on which direction you pick in terms of which move you're using, but I can't think of anything Byleth does that is truly unique in that sense. And maybe I'm just forgetting something at the moment, but I can't think of anything that Byleth does that makes me say, whoa, this is completely different. No other character can do this. I would even say Banjo-Kazooie are more interesting than Byleth in that sense.
With Byleth, for instance, I think it's less gimmicky, and it's more that no other character quite plays the exact same as them. But yeah, there are. Of course, it's not like so far distance compared to other DLC characters. But I do feel like the entire DLC lineup so far has just been wonderful. I think I understand that some people aren't pleased with every pick. Sure. That's fine. But in terms of gameplay styles, every single one has just been a joy to experience.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and no DLC character is ever going to satisfy the entire audience of Smash, and that's going to continue to be true going forward. Whoever it is, if it turns out to be Geno, a lot of people are going to be happy. A lot of people are going to be unhappy. If it turns out to be Sora, a lot of people are going to be happy, and a lot of people are going to be pissed. There's no one character is going to satisfy everybody because everybody has their own most wanted. But I think that so far the DLC has been very diverse and representative of a lot of different styles of gaming, a lot of different genres, eras of gaming. I mean, the fact that we got Terry Bogard is still crazy to me. I know that for a lot of people, Terry was not hype at all because they had never heard of Fatal Fury or never played it or weren't even alive when Fatal Fury was popular. But that's what I mean when I say that the DLC so far is representative of so many eras of gaming. Because you have a modern icon like Joker. I don't know if I call him an icon, but a modern, very popular character like Joker. Then you got Terry and Banjo-Kazooie. And then you got, for the Fire Emblem fans who did want an 8th Fire Emblem character, you got Byleth. So we really did cover, we have covered the entire spectrum so far, and it makes me very curious to see where we're going to go from here. I've been saying on Twitter and elsewhere that my official prediction for the next character is going to be Rex and Pyra, or just Rex, or whatever Xenoblade 2 character you want to choose. But that's my prediction for the next character is a Xenoblade 2 character.
We'll get into predictions more in another discussion, I think, but one thing that Sakurai said in the Byleth reveal is they're going to continue the trend of every DLC character having some kind of unique attribute. And to touch on Rex and Pyra, being able to just switch blades on the fly, that is going to be something that's huge. I guess that might be kind of like Pokemon Trainer, but I think there's some kind of unique angle you can have on there.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be a little different, and, one thing's for sure, even if we can't think of how a character would be made unique or different, Sakurai definitely can. So whatever he comes up with will likely be something that a lot of us haven't even thought about, and that's what makes it so exciting. And that's why I kind of scoff a little bit when there's that whole segment of the Smash community who's like, oh, we need a new director, we need fresh blood. Sakurai's he's done, man. He's good, but we can get some fresh blood in here and they can do better. I'm not saying there's nobody who can do better, but I also kind of am because I mean, Sakurai is so singular, right? I'm not saying he doesn't have his faults. He's not perfect, but as a director, I can't think of another game developer who is as so attentive to the smallest details, and not only the smallest details, but to a character's feel as he is. He is obsessed with getting the feel of a character right and getting. And making sure that fans of that character, especially if it's a third-party character, that they are faithful and feel how fans of that character in their own games would want them to play in Smash. Maybe with the exception of Sonic, because I still think his moveset is so much less than what it could be. Because Sonic does more than spin dash, but that's a discussion for a different day.
How do you feel about the development of the ARMS stage? Because I feel like with most of the DLC, the stages have all been such great additions, especially King of Fighters. I feel like that just that finally perfected how walk-off stages should have been. And if they could update every other walk-off stage with that gimmick, I would be so happy. However, I feel like the Spring Stadium is just kind of eh. Like, I'm not sure where you land on this, but to me, it's fine. It's fine, but it's nothing more than fine.
Yeah, it's just kind of there, right? I don't dislike the stage. I think it's fun, but it doesn't really stand out in any particular way. And I don't even mind walk-offs. I'm not some, I'll play stages like Delfino Plaza and Wii Fit Studio and even Garreg Mach Monastery commonly. I'll just pick them because I really don't mind walk-offs, although I know they're much worse for particular characters than they are others. But yeah, Spring Stadium just is kind of there. I enjoy it, and of course the music is great. ARMS music is great. But yeah, I think out of all the DLC stages so far, Spring Stadium is probably kind of the one that stands out the least alongside Yggdrasil's Altar. Those two are probably the least memorable for me so far. And then there's Spiral Mountain, which I think it's memorable only because it's a Banjo-Kazooie stage with Banjo-Kazooie music, but otherwise the gimmick isn't that interesting, and the stage itself isn't that interesting. And then you get into the really good ones, though, like Mementos, King of Fighters Stadium, and I actually really like Garreg Mach Monastery, although I know it's probably it's not popular for some other players because it is a walk-off. But I do think King of Fighters Stadium is the golden standard for DLC stages so far. That wall pop-off mechanic that lets you go up for follow-up combos and wall combos, it never gets old, and it has like 50 songs, so many great tracks in that stage. I never get tired of it. The colors, I love the sunset, the sunset colors in the sky. It just never gets old. That stage is my favorite so far in the DLC of all the DLC packs.
That's the thing too, is DLC is far more than just the fighter. You get the stage. With Terry in particular, you got 50 music tracks. With ARMS, I was a little disappointed at the lack of remixes, but I also understand it, because ARMS music is basically already like tailor-made for a fighting game, and they basically included every track from that game, so it's hard to complain too much. But just sort of revisiting the ARMS soundtrack again, I just kind of remember that this is a great soundtrack. It's more than just remixes of the main theme. There's tons of great little completely original tracks in there. And hearing them all in Spring Stadium's a bit weird, but it's still really great to have this all in there. I will say, though, Spring Stadium would not have been my pick for an ARMS stage.
I agree. I think my pick would have been Ribbon Ring, personally.
Same.
I was not really wanting Ribbon Girl as a character, but I think her stage, with its constantly shifting platforms and the kind of electronic dance music vibe, the kind of clubby vibe it has with all the lights and the colors, I think would have been visually a more interesting stage. And I think it could have had hazards in the form of those shifting platforms without being too overtly hazardous, kind of like Spring Stadium, but I just think more fun. Yeah,
and you have Helix's stage 2, which has those exploding green toxic cylinders.
Yeah, the DNA lab would have been good too, I think. Yeah, it almost feels as though, I don't know. I don't want to say they ran out of time, because I don't think that's true, but it does feel like they just kind of went with the throwaway safe pick with Spring Stadium, and I don't know why. But maybe they had different concepts going on during development, and tried different stages, or at least tried to work out ideas for different stages, and Spring Stadium is the only one that came together. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to complain too much. I think it's a fine stage. I just wish it had something that made it stand out a bit more. Like those springs on the side, they're kind of cool. You can get some good KOs with them, but for the most part, this isn't one that I'm going to revisit and be like, yes, I can't wait to use this gimmick again. It's just there.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting about Spring Stadium is that one of the things that makes it sets it apart is not anything that has anything to do with ARMS or springs in general, and that's those ceiling beams. They can occasionally catch characters as if you try to KO them off the top, and that's an interesting kind of wrinkle that's like, whoa, okay, you hit the ceiling, and okay, I got to try something else, and I find that interesting, but I know that's like the one thing that's preventing it from being tournament legal too, which don't even get me started on that, but. That doesn't really have anything to do with ARMS, though. It's just that happens to be kind of a cool little wrinkle to this stage, but it's not something that makes you think, oh, it's because it's the ARMS stage. No, it's just because it happens to be built with, ceiling beams on top.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've talked quite extensively about Min Min now. I want to get one last impression from you, though, Ash, because Min Min broke a pretty big fan rule in being that spirits cannot be playable characters. I don't think we ever believed this rule ourselves, but
no.
Now that spirits are officially on the table, is there one character who is a spirit that you would like to be in this game?
I only get one out of 1,400? Oh, man.
Just one.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to say Shantae.
Sure, yeah.
Shantae is... I mean, I think if I were to sit here and think about it, I would... You know, there are a ton of other spirits that I would love to see become playable characters. But the one that I keep coming back to right off the bat is Shantae. I think that if any indie representation, I think Shantae should be it. At one point I thought it should be Shovel Knight, and I'd still like to have Shovel Knight be playable. But he is in the game as an assist trophy. And, you know, I think there are things that other characters do already that Shovel Knight could also do. I don't know if he would stand apart as a playable character as much as Shantae would. Plus, you know, Shantae is another female character, which we need more of in the roster, and she's a woman of color, which we really need more of in the roster. So
should be the first.
I think, yeah. Well, actually, I mean, we're talking about Min Min, and she technically qualifies as well. She's an Asian woman, so yeah.
That's true, yeah.
And I think Shantae would be a really good pick for a lot of different reasons, and she's probably the one that I keep coming back to out of all spirits. But again, I'm not looking at the spirit list right in front of me right now, so there may be others that I would also put right up there with her. But what about you?
I mean, just to touch on Shantae a bit more, even above indie representation, that moveset definitely falls into the ranks of thinking outside the box.
Exactly.
She's a genie. She can transform into a bunch of animals. She can do anything, really.
Exactly.
So I think her moveset has a ton of potential. But as for me, this is tough as well. I want Rayman in, but I'm also thinking that Elma from Xenoblade Chronicles X would be really fun.
Oh, she would be cool. Yeah.
I think more than just getting X in the game, because right now Xenoblade Chronicles X barely has any spirits. It has no music, has no stage. It's just poorly represented as a game. But Elma would also be the first dual-wielding sword fighter, which would be unique. And I know people want Lloyd for that reason, but Elma can also dual-wield guns. So there's a bit of a double whammy there.
Because I didn't play X, I just never really had a chance to get around to it, but what can she do other than dual-wield that would set her apart?
There's a spoilery final smash you'd have, but in terms of outside of dual-wielding, that's a bit tougher. I think dual-wielding is the big thing that she has going for her. Like maybe we can incorporate the skells, like the mechs from Xenoblade Chronicles X in the moveset somehow. I think there's a lot to pull from that game.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that's just one of those mini games I need to go back and find the time to play. I'm sure there'll be a Switch port eventually, so maybe then. But yeah, I think that's what's so exciting, right? Though, is that fan rules have never meant anything. I think I don't know why people continue to think that they do. Sakurai makes his own rules as he goes along.
He does what he wants.
But yeah, I mean, hey, the next character could be an assist trophy promotion. Who knows? I kind of doubt it, but I don't think it's a rule that an assist trophy can't be promoted necessarily. But that's what's so exciting is now we know spirits are fair game, and that technically puts 1,300 something characters on the board. 1,400. I think we're at 1,420. So minus whatever spirits are already represented by playable characters. That's how many possibilities there are. So it's exciting, and I love that there have been no leaks. There have been no educated leaks, nothing like that. We really have no clue who's coming for the next 5 characters yet, and that's so exciting to me.
It's way more exciting than it's ever been, to be honest, because I think the Smash community, and even ourselves, we've got to this point where we've really narrowed down who could possibly in this game, and now we've opened it up to 1,000 more characters, which is going to make speculation so much more fun. And I'm in the same boat as you with assist trophies. I don't think they're going to promote one, but it's not impossible. Sure they could.
There's no reason to think they can't.
Assist trophies are already so flexible as they are. Knuckles cannot spawn on Green Hill because Knuckles is also a model on Green Hill. Or there's other instances, like Alucard can't spawn on Wii Fit Studio because of the mirror.
Right.
So the way they can disable assist trophies already, who's to say that if an assist trophy was playable, they couldn't just disable them it being in play while the character's in play? They can get around these rules. And look at Chrom. Chrom is in a final smash. He's in a victory pose, and he's playable. There's no limitations.
Well, I remember in the pre-Smash 4 days, people were convinced that Toon Link had been cut because you saw him in the background of Spirit Train. But Alfonso replaces him when Toon Link's in the battle. There you go. There are no every single time any Smash fan has ever said, well, this can't happen. X can't happen because Y. They have been wrong. Every single time. Sakurai does not give a damn. And that's what's so exciting, is that he really doesn't give a damn, and he does what he wants. And I guess in this case, he's also doing what Nintendo wants, because he said that Nintendo had a hand in the decision for these DLC characters. But the whole point is, there are no rules and limiting him from, implementing a character that he and Nintendo want to see in this game, and that's exciting.
That's a great note to end on, I think. So, Ash, any other things you want to say about Min Min before we wrap this up?
No, just that I'm looking forward to playing her more, because I'm better with her than I thought I'm better with her and enjoy playing her more than I thought I would, and I'm looking forward to playing against her more to learn how to get around all this crazy stuff she can do.
Me too, man. Alright, so if you guys want to get more from GameXplain, you can support us on Patreon. For $5 and up, you can get early access to Game Club and also watch our recordings of that and vote on the next game you want us to cover. And Game Club is basically a book club. So we'll be recording Kid Icarus Uprising fairly soon, and every single week we'll be talking about our progress in that game and seeing how well it holds up. And I think this one's going to be interesting because we can finally get vindication from GameXplain. Because GameXplain, the website, the YouTube channel, gave Kid Icarus Uprising a bad review upon launch, but the vast majority of this panel loves this game. So if you finally want to hear us talk great things about Uprising, stay tuned for that. And if you want to see this early, of course, support us on Patreon. But until then, thank you for watching, and of course be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for a lot more on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye!